that in the new heavens and new earth, in your resurrected state, you might recognize people who you didn't even know before. You might be like, oh, there's Spurgeon. Oh, there's Moses. Oh, there's Elijah. Today's topic, will we remember loved ones that are in heaven? Special bonds? Will we recognize each other? All of those different things, okay? A lot of people have this question. This is kind of a common question. And the fact of the matter is the Bible doesn't give us a lot of explicit direction on what heaven is going to be like and what we're going to see in heaven, what we're going to know in heaven, all those different things. We don't have a lot of feedback on that. But there is something that we have some information on when it comes to heaven. And this is Jesus in his resurrected state, in his glorified body. Jesus in this state is described in the Bible as the first fruits of the resurrection. That is that his example, what we see in him in terms of him being resurrected from the dead, is an example that we're going to follow in terms of our resurrected bodies as well. And I believe that this will continue on into the new heavens and new earth. So we're going to use Jesus as our example or our framework for the standard of what the new heavens and new earth is going to be like, what the state in heaven is going to be. With that said, there are two primary arguments against us being able to recognize people in their resurrected state. The first comes from Mary at the tomb. When Jesus was resurrected, this happened. She saw Jesus and she thought he was a gardener, right? He asked her, "Woman, why are you crying? Who is it you are looking for?" This is John 20:15-16. Thinking he was the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him and I will get him." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned toward him and cried out in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Okay. I think this is a weak argument to say, hey, Mary wasn't able to recognize Jesus. Therefore, in the resurrected state, we can't recognize each other. You can see specifically the language of turned toward her. I think that's the key here. He says her name. She turns towards him. So it seems to indicate that she heard him, but wasn't facing him or wasn't looking at him directly. Likely crying or something like that. She wasn't focused on him until he said her name. Then she turned towards him and immediately recognized him. Okay, so I think this is a good indicator. Now, it pretty much explicitly says that in the Greek. Straphera, straphesa. Straphesa from the Greek strepho, which means to turn around. So I think it's likely her back was to him, and that's why she didn't see or recognize him. Okay, very, very obvious to see that. Luke 24:15-16, another text that is sometimes used to say in our resurrected state, we're not going to recognize each other. Luke 24:15-16, as they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him. Okay. And so here they're kept from recognizing him, and sometimes it's argued that they can't recognize him or see him because in the resurrected state, we can't see people or recognize people for who they are. But I think the fact that they were kept from recognizing him is actually the key indicator in this verse. Here, they're kept from recognizing him, almost like a supernatural veil is put over their eyes. Like they can't see specifically in this case. And then later on, after Jesus leaves, then they ask each other, were our hearts not burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened up the scriptures to us? They were like, man, we should have known. We should have known that this was Jesus. We should have recognized him. I can't believe we didn't. So they were kept from recognizing him almost in a supernatural way. I don't think this is by virtue of the fact that Jesus in his resurrected body wasn't recognizable. I just think it's by virtue of the fact that there was some supernatural, kind of shielding of their eyes in this case. So we can see at this point that there are two verses that seem to suggest that Jesus in his resurrected state wasn't recognizable. But in both verses, we have very good exegetical and contextual reasons to believe that they have to do specifically with those events. Now let's look at all of the arguments for the fact that we will recognize people in their resurrected state. We've got 3 verses to go to, 2 of them in John and 1 of them in 1 Corinthians. First, we're in John 20:24-29. John 20:24-29. Now, Thomas, also known as Didymus, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, unless I see the nail marks in his hands, and put my finger where the nails were, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe. A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Through the doors, though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, peace be with you. Then he said to Thomas, put your finger here, see my hands, reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe. Thomas said to him, my Lord and my God. Then Jesus told him, because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not yet seen and have yet believed. Here's a good indicator that Jesus is very recognizable in his resurrected state. He's got the nail marks still in his hands. His side still seems to indicate. The book of Revelation says one stood as a lamb, though he had been slain. So it seems to be indicated that we can recognize Jesus in his resurrected state, even in the book of Revelation, in that image-heavy, laden book. John 21, 1-14. I'm not going to read all of this, but I'm going to give you the context and just give you the background here. Jesus appears to the disciples while they're fishing. He called out to them, friends, haven't you any fish? No, they answered. He said, throw your net in on the right side, then you're going to haul it in. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, it is the Lord. And soon as Simon Peter heard him say it is the Lord, he wrapped his outer garment around him, for he had taken it off, and he jumped into the water, and he swam to shore. And the other disciples followed in the boat. They knew immediately, they were able to recognize, this is Jesus. This is our master. This is the Lord. They knew immediately from his voice, and then they recognized him, obviously, as he ate with them a meal. Okay? So I think that's a very good indicator that they recognized Jesus immediately. Finally, I don't want to belabor the point too much, but 1 Corinthians 15, verse 6. After that, he appeared to more than 500 brothers and sisters at the same time. This is after the resurrection, most of whom are still living, though some have fallen asleep. Then he appeared to James and to all the apostles, and last of all, he appeared to me also, one abnormally born. And Paul, by saying abnormally born, means that one who was not present with them during their ministry, right? He was part of the new birth in a new and different way than the other apostles were. So again, a clear indicator that the disciples and the apostles could recognize and see Jesus in his resurrected state. So I think Jesus is a good example to go by. I think Jesus is a good example to go by when we are trying to determine, will we recognize people in the new heavens and new earth? Because ultimately the new heavens and new earth are founded upon our resurrected bodies, our resurrected state. I think the primary issue where people don't know, are we going to recognize each other or not, actually comes not from the Bible, but from kind of like this weird mentality, philosophical idea that we're like floating disembodied spirits or something like that in heaven. And that's just not the case at all. Heaven is not us being floating disembodied spirits. It's not like we don't have a physical existence or anything like that. We have resurrected bodies. And so get that idea out of your head and recognize that Jesus is the example that we can go to in terms of looking at an actual resurrected body and is it recognizable. One final point on this, and this is going a little bit further than the text itself does, but I think it will be helpful, okay? This is Luke 9, 29-33. As he was praying, the appearance of his face changed, and his clothes became as bright as a flash of lightning. This is Jesus at the transfiguration. Two men, Moses and Elijah, appeared in glorious splendor, talking with Jesus. They spoke about his departure, which he was about to bring fulfillment at Jerusalem. Peter and his companions were very sleepy, but when they became fully awake, they saw his glory and the two men standing with him. As the men were leaving, Peter said to him, Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah. He did not know what he was saying. I think there's an indicator here that there might be a sense or a case in the resurrected state where we will recognize people who we haven't even met. Not only will we recognize each other, but we may recognize people who we haven't even met. Here's the transfiguration. Seems to be an indicator of the new heavens and new earth or some sort of glorified state. And here, Moses and Elijah stand with Jesus, and Moses and Elijah are recognizable by Peter. Now, has Peter ever met Moses or Elijah? Does Peter have any idea what Moses and Elijah look like? No. He has no clue what they look like. It's not like they had cameras back then and they had taken pictures and passed them down through all of the Jews. And so he had no clue who Moses and Elijah were or what Moses and Elijah looked like. And yet, Peter instinctively recognizes, for some reason in their glorified state, this is Moses, this is Elijah, this is Jesus. Maybe we should build some tabernacles for you guys. So there might be an indication that in the new heavens and new earth, in your resurrected state, you might recognize people who you didn't even know before. You might be like, oh, there's Spurgeon. Oh, there's Moses. Oh, there's Elijah, right? So that might be the case. We're inferring there. We don't know that for 100% sure, but it is a good inference. Finally, there's the concept of feasting together. The Bible talks about the new heavens and new earth. We're going to have a feast, the wedding feast or the wedding banquet. We're going to be enjoying, eating, laughing, fellowshipping with one another, all of those things. And I think that affair or that state, that reunion of sorts, would be less enjoyable or less exciting if we didn't recognize each other, if we were meeting all these people for the first time. So I do think we will recognize each other in heaven. Obviously, we'll meet new people as well, but maybe we'll instinctively know or recognize who they are. Not really sure. But Jesus is our example when it comes to this topic, and his resurrected state makes it pretty clear or pretty obvious that we'll recognize each other. Hey guys, Pastor Tanner here. I hope you enjoyed that video. Likes and subscribes are always appreciated. And if you scroll down to the description, you can join our Twitch or our Discord, where we would love for you to plug into our community. Take care. God bless. Bye now.